All right. We have to welcome in my good friend. I haven't spoken to him in a while because, he's Mr. Big Time now. Now he finds himself all the way in Manchester, New Hampshire. I mean, I don't even, the only thing I know Manchester is that real sad and depressing movie, Manchester by the Sea. So well, where are we at now? What is this, WMUR?
WMUR, the ABC affiliate out here, about 40 minutes outside of Boston. So we're in the Boston DMA. So I'm all, look, you know me, Q, a Philly guy in the Boston market. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's got to be so, just troubling, to be quite honest, for you. You're covering the Sox tonight?
Yeah, I'm back at the station. I'm doing studio work. They're in the ALCS, Q. You may not like it, but hey, the Sox are looking good.
Oh, my God.
We'll see what happens.
Let me guess. That was part of the contract, right? You got to wax poetic about the Pats and the Celtics and the Sox and the Bruins.
I just deliver the news, the facts. No opinion.
All right, let's. All right. Well, I know you're doing great work as always, and congrats on the move. Then you know what? I still look forward to that first text with that snowfall because I know you're not looking forward to that cold weather.
I've been in the South for most of my adult life. I'm originally from the East Coast, but throughout my 20s and 30s, early 30s, I've been in the South. So It's already been dipping into the 50s. Yeah. I'm feeling a little, it's coming. So
soft.
When that happens, that first snowflake hits the ground. Trust me.
Yeah.
I'm not ready.
Yeah. You know what? You might turn around and pull Simmons. You might just disengage yourself on live TV. They go to Jonathan Marshall at the sports desk, and all of a sudden you're like, "Hey, I don't want to do this anymore."
Phone hanging out of my suit pants.
You know what? I didn't even mention that too during the opening monologue. What do you make of this mess right now? Is this just the era of the entitled athlete, or is this a deeper issue with Simmons in your estimation?
It's layered, right, Q? Like, it's so many layers to this, and I've heard a lot of explanations for this. I've heard he's been enabled coming up, even at LSU or before LSU, even being a part of the Sixers organization, he's been enabled, the mental health side of things. So I think there's something to be said about each and every one of these things. But the bottom line is this for Ben Simmons. This is what we've seen. And these were concerns even before he got drafted, right? That will, that desire inside of him. You really can't gauge. Physically, you can measure what an athlete is, right? The height, weight, how high can they jump, how fast can they run. But inside, that mental aspect, the heart, you can't really gauge that until things really get tough. And so in that Game 7 playoff game, you remember, 5'0" Trae Young, 6' everything, Ben Simmons has an open lane to just lay it up, dunk it, whatever. He passes up to Matisse Thybulle. That right there, to me, is the perfect symbolization of Ben Simmons in Philly. Right there.
I agree.
Right there.
It's a microcosm, absolutely. I mean, I tried to equate it to Ryan Howard not taking the bat off of his shoulders. Mm-hmm. I think it was against either the Giants or the Cardinals. But to your point, you're right. It's that unwillingness, right? And that does not bode well in this type of market with this kind of loyal fan base. And then when you've got other guys busting, for Doc to kick him out of practice, for Embiid to come out and say, I really don't care anymore what that man does or thinks. I mean, that you can never, whether there's something deeper internally going on with him, you can never, ever trust him again if you're a member of the Philadelphia 76ers. You just can't. I don't care what anyone says. You can't. He is not a foxhole guy. So with all that being said, I know that they tried to make a couple moves for him. They tried to put him out there, trade him. They wanted an enormous return on the investment with several first-round draft picks. If you're the Sixers at this moment, if you've suspended him indefinitely, he's not going to obviously play tonight when they take on New Orleans. What do you do? Do you just keep him suspended, he doesn't play at all, and you pay him?
I mean, it's the Sixers they're in a tough spot, right? Because obviously you want to get rid of this guy. He doesn't want to be here, but you have to pay him, even if he's suspended, right? So it's a tough situation, but what are you going to, something has to give eventually, right? Ben obviously is showing he doesn't care if he plays or not. So
yeah, but why would I stick you out on the floor if I know you're not going to be engaged? What I mean, it's almost like sending a little kid out there and it's a 35-0 game, and he's going to mope.
For me, it's like, okay, especially when it comes to being an athlete, being a pro athlete, right? He's not getting better by sitting on the bench. So his value is dipping by the daily, right? Like, so the longer he extends this stunt, Philly's bargaining value, bargaining chip, whatever they're trying to do, lowers. So for me at this point, you just got to cut your losses. Sometimes that peace of mind is worth it. It's just priceless. You can't, you know what I mean? Just overall team chemistry, and not having to deal with those questions, just getting rid of just that then, it's toxic. And you just got to get rid of it. Sometimes the peace of mind is far outweighs what you could even, whatever you're trying to get back in return. So for me, I was of the belief, let's get the best that you can get if you're Philly. But at this point, you know what? Let's get a young Thomas and prospect, a draft pick. I don't know what to buy. I'm just spitballing.
So
you got to get rid of you got to get rid of him as soon as possible, because him sitting, we're going to sit him for 4 years.
No. Well, I mean, it's just ludicrous. I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying. There comes a time where you just say, enough is enough. It's like a bad relationship, right? You're just like, you wake up one morning, you're like, I'm over this. Whether it's from a male standpoint or a female standpoint, you're like, that's it, we're done. Like,
peace of mind.
Right, and I'm going to assume that as a franchise, the last straw was yesterday when he's booted out of practice by Doc Rivers. He's suspended for the opener. The only thing I'll counter with you, Jonathan, is you're talking about, his value. I already think it's dwindled, man. I think it has nothing to do with the tantrum, the past several days. He's holding out. He doesn't want to work on the game. His comments, his unwillingness to actually take a phone call, engage his teammates in the offseason, those are all red flags. And if you remember after the playoff loss to Atlanta, I had you on and I said if I was Doc, I would have sat him down man-to-man right there and then, even though it was fresh, and say, do you want to be great? He says no, then I cut my losses right there. I mean, that's just where you're at.
Honestly, I'm just tired of the excuses I'm hearing about for Ben Simmons. You could have got like Joel Embiid. He came into this league. He dealt with injuries. We questioned his ability to stay in shape. And what did he do last year? Was in the best shape of his life. He improved his overall game, passing out of double teams. Those are things that I looked at and said, I want to see him take that next level. And people have criticized him for that in the past. And what did he do last year? If he was the MVP. If it was not for injury, Joel Embiid was the MVP. He took all their criticism. What did he do? He got in the gym, got in the best shape of his life. If you can't play with it, any point guard, name me any point guard in this league. They would love to play with Joel Embiid.
No doubt.
Period.
No, listen, everything you're saying, it's 100% accurate. And I say tongue-in-cheek, it's not breaking news, right? It's what I think a lot of people have been saying. I just look at this. I mean, how many GMs you think are lying around the block right now to basically make a trade for a guy that disappears in crunch time of playoff games?
He's not even worth the fuss. Like, what did he do against Atlanta? Like, you're giving me 4, 5, 6 points. Like, what are we talking about here?
I know.
You're not even worth the fuss.
Yeah, they really overplayed their hand here, man. They really did, because I think they were looking at we can trade him. And look, what does it say where the NBA is a business like every other sport, or I should say every other league like the NFL. Coaches, GMs are going to try to do what's best for their team. They want to put a winning product out there. So if someone turns around and says, yo, guess what, Q? I mean, listen, we were kind of, there's rumors going around. You might get traded. Okay. Trade me so I can come back and shut up you know what. Instead, he takes it as like a child. like he's going to take his ball and leave the court. Like I just send him somewhere cold. Send him somewhere where he's going to win 15, 20 games a year.
I saw the news and I saw the video of him bouncing the ball and just having the cell phone in his pocket, and what happened with him and Doc with the defensive drill. I thought about, like, I saw this at my high school practices back in the day when a player didn't want to practice. The coach would just say, go. Like, this is high school stuff. Like, not even college. This is high school level stuff we're talking about, how he's behaving. You know, like it's deeper than basketball. It's so unprofessional.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, come on, what are we doing?
Yeah, and guess what? It's just not his fault. It's the Sixers' fault too, because they basically they placated to him. I still think 9-1 for the Bucks to repeat. Those are your best odds. You know, the Nets. We didn't even get in a Kyrie situation. I mean, you go from Simmons to go to Kyrie. I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. Like, how in the world would you even want to be a fan of the Nets right now, let alone even try to bet, whether it's futures markets or night in, night out, where you might have a stretch of 20-something games where they're physically in Brooklyn and maybe they have 15 out of 20 nights playing at home or 25 nights, and he might not even be available. So you go from, Simmons imploding and blowing up the Sixers, and then you got the Kyrie. Say what you want about him, the goofiness. It's not about Kyrie, the player that gives back. It's about Kyrie, the basketball player that either you're going to be engaged or you're not going to be engaged, right? You can't be a part-time player. So how is this going to end up here with the Nets?
And the Nets team that definitely needs as much time on the court together, right, to develop that chemistry, right, between KD, Harden, and Kyrie. And that was the conversation last year, right, with Harden and Kyrie and those guys. They're going to be missing games. Harden physically, he's going to be able to stand the 82 games. KD, too. I know he had a great season, but we still don't know.
Right.
So, this team needs that chemistry. They need to develop that during the regular season. And Kyrie not being there, that just means somebody else has to step up. That's a hole there. Somebody has to step up into that third role. And Blake Griffin's not that guy. LaMarcus Aldridge isn't that guy. Paul Millsap isn't that guy. Who's that third guy that they're going to have to step up into that role? And that's what happens. And same thing as Philly. Like when Ben Simmons gone, somebody has to step up into that. They have to play up a role that they may not be fit for. So that's what it does for me. And for Milwaukee, I think Milwaukee has the edge because, look, obviously the championship hangover is real. But a guy like Giannis, if there's any superstar that I feel like never has to work, I would never worry about that with, is Giannis. Every offseason, he comes back with something more. We're seeing the jump shot in the preseason. We're seeing that confidence in that jumper and willingness to work on it. So I don't think Giannis will let his team let up. I think Milwaukee's on a mission to say, look, this wasn't a fluke. The conversation was, hey, if KD had his feet a little bit down the three-point line, maybe that would be Brooklyn in the finals representing the Eastern Conference. But maybe Milwaukee has that chip on the shoulder, like, look, we deserved it, and we're going to prove it again. So Milwaukee, to me, should be the favorites right now.
Yeah. No, listen, agree 100%. I mean, I think I gave too much credit to the Eastern Conference, to be quite honest with you. I thought it was going to be a little more stacked. I mean, I'm looking at some of these win totals right now. Atlanta arrived a year earlier, so their win total is sitting at 46.5. They won 41 last year. Boston won 36. They were a 500 team. Their win total is 46. I'm not touching the Nets at 56.5. I cannot do it. I'll touch Milwaukee, which I already did. How about the Knicks? The Knicks are going to win 45 games this year. I'm telling you right now, the Knicks will win a playoff series. Stop laughing.
I love. Actually, you know what? The Knicks were a likable team last year.
They were undefeated in the preseason, Jonathan. Thibodeau's coaching like this is the Eastern Conference Finals.
They were the lovable, underdog guys. Like, you got to love it. Love the addition of Kemba Walker. I think that's one thing that the Knicks were missing as far as that dynamic option to score at that spot. So I think having Kemba as a starter, D-Rose off the bench, I want to see Emmanuel quickly take that next level. He's one of my favorite young guys to watch. Julius Randle, obviously, he had a great season. So I think New York should make the playoff. Obviously, winning a series, it all depends on the matchup, right? But, if they play Atlanta again, which I hope happens, I want that rivalry to happen. That would be interesting. That would be, because with Atlanta, with a young team, right, they were ahead of schedule. So can you do it again, right? And so that's my viewpoint on Atlanta. But New York, I love the addition of Kemba. He's back home. Maybe this can renew him, especially after the tough run he had with Boston. If he can stay healthy, Kemba is going to be a great addition. You guys.
Yeah, it's just the offense scares me a little bit, right? Payne was a non-factor offensively. Rose was great all season after he was acquired from the Pistons, but, you saw the age. It crept up on him in the Atlanta series. You mentioned Walker. Yeah, I mean, listen, he's a guy that can pile on some points, instant offense. I get a little... Randolph, to me, is almost like your hit and miss, right? Because he had such a great regular season. But again, where was he in the playoffs? So I still believe they are a playoff team. Now, are they going to contend for the Atlantic? No, they're not. But they can easily win 43-plus games. Give me a team that you think could be a sleeper coming out of the Eastern Conference.
Eastern Conference, Chicago intrigues me. I think people had Lonzo Ball confused coming out of UCLA. They expect him to be just a weird kid coming to the Lakers, and I feel like the hype was just so much with Lonzo. But he's a really solid player, and I don't think he's been judged fairly. And so seeing him with Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Chicago intrigues me. I think they may be an exciting team. I think Chicago's going to be a playoff team this year.
Well, I'll tell you, the Sharps think that as well because they have their win total over 42.5. So
Chicago, they can be very. Zach LaVine's one of the more talented two guards in this league, and DeRozan, mid-range killer. I think he has another dynamic to that team. Vucevic, he's just solid all around. I love the addition of Alex Caruso off the bench. Sorry, Lakers fan. Caruso is now a Chicago Bull. He's going to be a fan favorite. So I mean, Chicago for me, looking at the Eastern Conference, I think if they don't make the postseason this season, it'll be a major disappointment. That shows you how much they believe by adding Lonzo and DeMar DeRozan. Like they're putting it all in. Like, look, this is a playoff team.
I was watching the Warriors and the Lakers last night, and it was almost like watching an all-star game, right? You got Davis on the floor and LeBron, and then you got Westbrook, and Howard was there, and then Melo knocking down a couple shots. And then I was laughing because I'm like, it doesn't matter where you stick Westbrook. He's going to be 4 for 13 for 8 points. He's going to have a minus when he's on the floor. I mean, he played 35. Listen, I get it. It's the first game. This Lakers squad reminds me of the Lakers squad years ago when Karl Malone wanted to chase the ring, Gary Payton, old veteran Hall of Fame guys. There were not enough balls to go around. They were a major disappointment. And LeBron and Anthony Davis cannot play 37, 39 minutes a night. They just can't for an entire season. I don't see it happening.
No, but I mean, they may have to. I mean, what we saw last night, AD and LeBron, they're going to get their 30 points right, but look, the Russell Westbrook experience, where do I begin? He's never been the third guy, Q, right? I texted one of my group chats last night, just looking at what happened. Like, in OKC with KD, right, he was number 2, and then he was number 1. He goes to Washington, he's number 2 behind Bill. But he's never been a guy like Westbrook. How is he going to handle being a third guy when he's always in control? He needs the basketball, right? So what type of impact? If you're not the number 1 or number 2 option, how else are you going to make an impact? Yeah. And what impact is he making outside of what he's used to doing his whole career? So you can't expect him all of a sudden at this point in his career, he is who he is. Like, so if you're expecting to see the same dominant triple double numbers nightly, I don't know. It's just not going to happen. I don't see how it's going to happen. So he's got to find a way to switch and to switch his mindset and try to figure out a way to fit into a role. He has to fit into a role on this team. And I don't think any of these guys outside of AD or LeBron know what is their identity. I couldn't tell you right now. Yeah. When I look at that Golden State team, I see a team that knows they have defined roles. They know what their identity is. They don't even have Klay Thompson or James Wiseman back yet. So to me, last night showed me so much more about Golden State. And I'm high on them. I think they can make a Western Conference Finals run, honestly.
Yeah, the books have the Lakers at 53.5 for the win total. Utah, 52.5, which was expected. Phoenix as well with their great run last year. The Clippers, kind of an interesting cat, right? 46.5. They were 47-25 last year, plus 105 to make the playoffs. Man, I think your best bet out of the Western Conference, and I wouldn't even talk about a sleeper, the defense scares the bejesus out of me, is Portland. They should win 45 games. Their win total is 44.5. They've been awful on defense. I think they ranked 29th or 30th last year, 28th the season before. They lose out on Cantor, right, Anthony. They added, I think, Nance Jr. I would say my best bet right there, I would probably say, because of their defense, I would go under 44.5. So, pardon me, I misspoke. I would go under 44.5. And then Golden State at 48.5. I believe they're going to make a run this year. I do, and I can see them winning 50 games. What's your thoughts?
No, I'm high on Golden State. Like Steph, I mean, he had a triple-double, but he really wasn't having one of those Steph nights where he's cooking, right, hitting from everywhere, giving you 30 and 40 on your head. So the fact that he's able to have a guy like Jordan Poole, who I think may be the most improved player this year when it's all said and done, he's a young guy who can give you 20 or 30, who knows. But when Clay gets back, you put a Poole to that six-man role, to have that guy off the bench, in addition to what you're getting from Steph and Clay and Draymond. You know, they're going to be there. But James Wiseman, I hope he can, if he gets healthy, hopefully he takes that next level. Golden State's going to be a threat. Honestly, if I had to pick one team that I would put my money on to make the Western Conference Finals, it'd be Golden State. And that's just off of one game and not even being at full strength. I really believe in this team.
Give me your wax poetic about your Grizz.
My Grizz?
We're not talking Celtics. I'm sorry, that's not happening.
Listen, I mean, look, it starts and ends with Ja Morant. Ja Morant he's special. And I think, you know, the narrative coming into his career was him versus Zion, right? I think we know who's winning that conversation right now.
Yeah.
Memphis is lucky that they got the second pick, and they were able to get a guy like Ja Morant, who plays the most important position in the league. And what he's been able to do last year, I don't think anybody expected last year, right? And so I think Ja, he's another one of those guys who's just a dog. He's going to be in the gym working. He's going to bring in something new every year. So I expect Ja to have potentially an all-star type year. To me, it all comes down to Jaren Jackson Jr. He just got paid.
Yep.
He just got the extension. So for me, Ja's there, but Ja needs some help. You know, Jaren Jackson has to be that guy. Dylan Brooks, yes, he was a star in the Utah series, and I love what he brings to the floor. But can he be relied upon on a nightly basis to be that number two guy? I'm not sure yet. But Jaren Jackson, former lottery pick, he has to be that guy. I want to see him. He has to put up 20 and 10 a night. Like, he has to. You know, so that's what I want to see. If Jaren Jackson takes that next step, Memphis should be a playoff team. Period.
All right, finals prediction and MVP.
Oh, man, you put me on the spot. Finals prediction.
Hey, I mean, this is what we do. You got to back your play. Let's go. And it can't be Memphis versus Boston.
Never that. I would love to see Philly in the finals, but I'm just not sure. I have to wait and see. I'm gonna in the Western Conference. This is me saying Wiseman takes the next step and Klay Thompson comes back and he declared that we're used to. I say Golden State represents the West. Eastern Conference, man. There's something about Milwaukee. Like, I really wasn't a believer all last season. Even in the playoffs, I wasn't believing, but they made me a believer. And I think they're hungry again. I think Giannis is hungry again. And Brooklyn, they're just too volatile. They're too unpredictable. Milwaukee's a safe pick right now. I'm saying Milwaukee, Golden State, but I think Golden State wins the championship if that's the matchup.
And then about 10 seconds, MVP?
MVP. I'm going to go with, you know what? I'm going to say Steph goes and gets it.
Interesting. I mean, it could be that bounce back, right? That was an injury-depleted team last year, and I think people are ready to write them off.
Yeah?
It is a grind, the NBA, as they say. Of course, Jonathan Marshall, sports reporter anchor at WMUR in Manchester, New Hampshire. He's got the Sox and the Astros tonight. I don't even care about that or your prediction. All right, awesome stuff as always. We will talk. It's the lesser of two evils for me. We will talk next week. I appreciate you dropping knowledge as you always do.
All right, Chief. All
right, you got it. My guy, Jonathan Marshall, 445. How about this? How about this coming down about 20 minutes ago in the NFL? A trade that we were talking about for the last 3 months might actually go down. I'll tell you what it is on the other side.
Automotive.